Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into one of history's really enduring enigmas, Ötzi the Iceman.
Yeah, he's fascinating.
But we're not just exploring his individual story, we're actually trying to uncover something broader, how his ancient homeland, the Eastern Italian Alps, became this unique genetic stronghold.
Right.
It sort of defied the massive population shifts that swept across the rest of Europe for millennia.
Exactly. And this deep dive is really a shortcut to understanding that surprising genetic resilience.
So what's our guide here?
We're basing this on a really groundbreaking paleogenomic study. So looking at ancient DNA,
Okay.
it analyzed the genomes from dozens of individuals, Ötzi included, of course, spanning over 5,000 years of history in that region.
Wow, 5,000 years.
Yeah, so our goal here is to pull out the key insights, so you can really get a grasp on how these big demographic events shaped Europe and, crucially, what made this specific Alpine region kind of stand apart.
Okay, let's unpack this region then. The Eastern Italian Alps, specifically Trentino Alto Adige, our sources say it played this critical dual role. On one hand, a natural bridge, right? Facilitating cultural exchange between the Mediterranean and the north.
Absolutely, for millennia.
But then, paradoxically, it was also this place of surprising genetic resilience. How did the researchers even tackle that apparent contradiction?
Well, that's the core question, isn't it? They tackled it by analyzing new paleogenomic data, so
Yeah.
new ancient DNA from 47 individuals.
Okay.
And these range from the late Mesolithic, way back around 6380 BC, all the way up to the Middle Bronze Age, about 1295 BC.
That's a huge span.
It is. And then they combined this new data with existing data, including Ötzi himself, obviously. And this created this incredibly rich data set,
Right.
which allowed them to really meticulously track how the genetic makeup of these alpine groups changed, or perhaps more interestingly, how it didn't really change significantly over that huge stretch of time.
Okay, so starting at the beginning then, thinking about that dual role, what did the ancient DNA tell us about the very first groups, the people who settled there after the glaciers retreated?
Yeah, that's a fundamental question. Who were the first people there? The study looked at a Mesolithic individual named MAD-01.
MAD-01, okay.
He's dated to about 6380 to 6107 BC. So he gives us this rare, really valuable glimpse into Europe's late Mesolithic.
And what did his genes show?
His genome showed a clear genetic admixture, basically a mix between Western hunter-gatherers, sort of related to the Villabruna cluster you might have heard about, and Eastern hunter-gatherers from areas like modern-day Russia and Ukraine.
Interesting. East meets West way back then.
Exactly. And this mixing event seems to have happened remarkably early. They estimate it between roughly 13,700 and 8,300 BC.
Wow, that is early.
Yeah, it's one of the earliest examples found in southern Europe. It really points towards these deep connections to the east, possibly through migrations coming up maybe from the southeast.
That's quite a deep root right there. But then Europe undergoes this massive shift, right? The arrival of the early Neolithic farmers from Anatolia.
A huge transformation.
How did that wave impact the Alps? Did it just wash over them?
Well, connecting this to the bigger picture, you're right. Those Anatolian farmer migrations, starting around 7000 BC, they profoundly reshaped the whole continent's gene pool.
Yeah.
And in the Eastern Italian Alps, the study definitely shows a substantial genetic shift from that Mesolithic profile to a Neolithic one. It seems to start, at least based on their samples, around 4600 to 4400 BC.
Okay, so there was a big shift initially, but here's where it gets really interesting, according to the sources.
Go on.
For most individuals, after that initial shift from the Middle Neolithic onwards, the study found this, striking genetic continuity. The vast majority carried a really high percentage, like 80 to 90% of that Anatolian early Neolithic farmer ancestry.
Yeah, that's right.
And only a consistently low bit, maybe 10 to 20%, from the local hunter-gatherer groups they encountered. It's almost like these alpine populations became a sort of genetic time capsule or refuge.
That's a great way to put it, a genetic refuge.
Yeah, holding on to that original Neolithic lineage for over 2,000 years, even while things were changing dramatically elsewhere in Europe.
Exactly. And that is really a key takeaway here, this continuity. Ötzi, our Iceman, he fits perfectly into this picture.
Ah.
His genome, dated between 3368 and 3108 BC, it confirmed earlier findings he had exceptionally high Anatolian farmer ancestry, about 90.5%,
Wow.
and really low hunter-gatherer ancestry, just 9.5%. And this ancestral mix, it wasn't just him. It was pretty much characteristic of almost all the other Copper Age individuals they looked at and most of the prehistoric Alpine individuals in the study overall.
Okay, so Ötzi fits the general mold. But wait, you mentioned earlier in the source's hint that Ötzi was maybe an outlier in some ways too. What does this continuity story mean for him specifically?
Right, that's an important nuance. So while he shares that broad ancestral pattern, Ötzi's specific maternal and paternal lineages, they were distinct. They didn't match any of the other Alpine individuals in this study.
Really? How so?
Well, his Y chromosome haplogroup, that's the line passed down father to son, G2AZ6208, and his mitochondrial DNA, the mother's line, K1F, neither of those have been found in any other ancient or modern individuals tested so far.
None at all. That's pretty unique.
It is. It suggests that maybe his own immediate family line had a slightly different, perhaps even more isolated genetic history compared to his neighbors, even within this generally continuous population.
Huh. It's incredible how DNA can hint at these ancient family dynamics and social structures. What else did the study reveal about how these communities might have been organized?
Well, what's fascinating here is the pattern they saw when they looked specifically at those unipernal markers, the Y chromosome and the mtDNA.
Okay.
They found very low diversity in the Y chromosome lineages among the males. Over 90% of the prehistoric Alpine males, not counting that early Mesolithic guy, carried the same broad G2A paternal haplogroup.
90%.
Yeah.
The same line.
Yeah, the same broad group, strongly associated with the early Neolithic settlement of Europe. And one specific branch within that, G2AL497, was particularly common. It really points to long-term stable settlement for males in this area. They weren't moving around much, genetically speaking.
Okay, stable male lines. What about the female side?
That's where it gets different. In stark contrast, the maternal mtDNA haplogroups showed much higher diversity. They found various different lineages, ones typically found across prehistoric Europe more broadly.
So lots of different maternal lines coming in, but the paternal lines staying put. What does that suggest about how these ancient Alpine communities actually lived?
This pattern is a really strong indicator of a patriarchal society.
Patriarchal pan.
Meaning, in that kind of social structure, males tend to stay in the community where they were born. They inherit land or status there, and their Y chromosome lineage stays put over generations.
Right.
Meanwhile, females often move from their birth community to their male partner's community when they marry or pair up to have children.
Okay.
So this would result exactly in what we see. Male lineages remaining stable and showing low diversity locally, while female lineages show more external connections because women are moving in, bringing their diverse mitochondrial DNA with them. It enriches the local mtDNA pool.
That makes perfect sense. So while genetic continuity was the big story, the sources also mentioned some intriguing exceptions, right? Despite this stronghold effect, did any outside genetic influences manage to trickle in? Were there any aha moments?
Yes, definitely. Despite that overall stability, the study did identify occasional limited gene flow from groups with different ancestries. It wasn't a flood, but there were trickles.
Like what?
For instance, they found steppe-related ancestry, that's the ancestry associated with pastoralists moving from the Pontic-Caspian steppe, appearing in the Eastern Italian Alps. And interestingly, it appeared earlier there than in some other Italian regions.
How early?
Around 2400 BC. It was detected first in a young female, LAS01, and then in two other individuals from the Copper Age, Early Bronze Age transition. On average, these individuals carried about 22% steppe-related ancestry.
22%. That's not insignificant.
No, it's noticeable, but still suggests mixing rather than complete replacement.
Okay. And was there anyone with even more steppe ancestry?
Yes, the highest percentage they found, 36.1%, was in a male individual from the Middle Bronze Age. His name was Siu-01, dated around 1601 to 1295 BC.
Okay, over a third. And was there anything else interesting about him?
Yes, actually. He also carried the R1b Y chromosome haplogroup.
R1b, isn't that often linked to?
Exactly. It's commonly associated with migrations of bell beaker groups, especially from Central and Western Europe. So his genetics suggest a potentially different origin, maybe from across the Alps. But, and this is important, the overall occurrence of R1b in the Eastern Italian Alps samples was very rare. So it suggests that while he might have come from elsewhere, the genetic impact from steppe-related males on the broader Alpine population remained quite low. It didn't fundamentally change that G2A dominance we talked about.
Got it. So a few individuals came in, but didn't drastically shift the overall male lineage pattern. Were there any other surprising connections found? More distant echoes?
Yes, a couple more.
Yeah.
Later than the steppe ancestry, starting around 2200-2000 BC, another distinct ancestry component pops up. This one is related to Iranian Neolithic farmers.
Iranian Neolithic. In the Alps.
Yeah. It contributed about 20% to the ancestry of several individuals like NOG 302, ROM 307, and ROM 305. What's interesting is that this component hadn't really been seen in other prehistoric samples from northern Italy.
So where might it have come from?
The researchers suggest it might have arrived perhaps from southern Italy or maybe even the Asian region. The route isn't clear yet.
Okay, and one more.
And one more, yes. In a single female individual, ROM 402, they identified a distinct component of Caucasian hunter-gatherer ancestry,
Caucasian hunter-gatherer.
which again points towards ancestors ultimately from regions further east, maybe the Eastern Mediterranean or the Caucasus region itself. So yes, while continuity is the main theme, these little threads show the Alps weren't completely cut off. There were ongoing, though seemingly limited, connections.
Fascinating. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Beyond the big picture of ancestry and population movements, what did the study tell us about the sort of daily lives or physical characteristics of these prehistoric Alpine people? Did they share traits with Ötzi in that regard?
They definitely shared some key traits, yeah. The study looked at certain genes related to phenotype physical characteristics and metabolism. And like Ötzi, all the prehistoric Alpine individuals they analyzed were likely lactose intolerant.
Ah, okay, so they couldn't digest milk after childhood.
Exactly. This genetic adaptation for lactase persistence, the ability to digest milk as an adult, hadn't become common yet. It was pretty much the norm across ancient populations before dairy farming for milk really took off.
Right. So what about their diets more generally then? Did the genes offer any other clues?
They did. They looked at specific genetic variants. For example, a variant in a gene called PLRP2, which is associated with digesting fats, particularly in an agricultural diet.
Mm-hmm.
That variant started appearing from the Middle Neolithic onwards and became more common through the Copper Age. This suggests an ongoing adaptation to a diet richer in cereals, the kind of typical of farming communities.
Makes sense.
And another gene, NAT2, suggested that all these Alpine individuals, including Ötzi, likely ate a predominantly plant-based diet, one rich in fatty acids from plants.
Interesting. And what about physical appearance? Could they tell anything about that?
Based on the limited data available for those specific genes, the predictions were that most of these individuals, again similar to Ötzi based on recent studies of his genome, likely had brown eyes and dark brown to black hair.
So a fairly consistent picture there too, mirroring Ötzi. Okay, let's try and tie this all together. What does this deep dive really mean for how we understand the Eastern Italian Alps and, of course, its most famous resident, Ötzi?
Well, I think it strongly reinforces this idea we discussed, that the Eastern Italian Alps, even though it's geographically a bridge, acted as this really remarkable genetic stronghold for a huge chunk of prehistory.
Right.
It seems to have experienced pretty limited genetic mixing from the outside, especially from the Middle Neolithic right through to the Middle Bronze Age. That suggests a relative degree of isolation compared to many other European regions that saw much more dramatic population turnovers and admixture events.
So continuity was really the dominant story there for a long time.
It seems so. And the cultural evolution in the area, based on archaeological evidence, also appears to have been quite gradual. They absorbed new things, new technologies like copper metallurgy, but apparently without these massive disruptions to their fundamental genetic structure.
It's just such a powerful reminder, isn't it, that history isn't always about these grand, sweeping changes. Sometimes it's about this, well, tenacious continuity in specific places, even places that seem like they should be crossroads.
Absolutely.
And even with all this incredible new genomic data, the mystery, maybe, of Ötzi's specific cultural identity, his exact group, that perhaps remains a bit open. It kind of invites you, the listener, to ponder, doesn't it? How much of who we are or who they were is shaped by the land we inhabit, this kind of deep-rooted continuity, and how much is shaped by the paths we choose or perhaps the paths we're forced to take, those external connections, however small.